Greetings and salutations. Second Star right back with some more Raid Shadow Legends, and on screen we have Pitiless One. This may look a bit familiar to you because I have done a Pitiless One guide before, last year. I kind of came to the conclusion at that point that he's a fine DPS champion. He gives himself a little bit of self-sustain, he attacks pretty quickly, he can fill a DPS slot in a pinch, but he doesn't bring a whole lot of utility overall to a team, right? That was my conclusion then. My conclusion has not changed. The basic functionality of this champion is the exact same as it was last year. However, he hasn't been buffed twice, but this particular build that I have Pitiless One in is the beneficiary of two buffs over the course of the past year. First, Pitiless One himself was buffed. His base damage was buffed between 15%. Whenever I did damage testing, it was more like 16%, but you know, maybe that's just, I only did it like 10 times and then figured that was big enough sample size. They likely buffed him 15%, but in practical purposes, I kept getting 16%. Regardless, that's a nice, decent buff to base damage, right? And then I have him in, oh, whoops, wrong screen. I have him in Retaliation gear, right? And Retaliation gear, as we all know, has also been buffed significantly. It's gone from a 25% chance to counterattack when hit to a 35% chance to counterattack when hit. And that is of particular benefit to this champion in particular. And there's probably other champions like him, but if you recognize the way the skill works, and there's another champion that does it, mention it down in the comments and I'll take a look. I'm drawing a blank right now, as my attention is divided between a million things these days. But regardless, there's a nice 10% buff to the chance to counterattack. Okay, and if we look at his skills, we'll see why that is a good thing. Split Arrow, his A1, attacks the enemy twice. Each critical hit fills the champion's turn meter by 5%. Okay, and then Projectile Burst attacks all enemies. Each critical hit boosts the champion's turn meter by 15%. So we have two attacks that increase turn meter by a certain percentage, right? 5 and 15%. And as he is retaliating every time, that's 10% plus 10%. So it's really could potentially be 20% on a turn. 10% in his turn, enemy hits him, he retaliates and gets another 10% of his turn meter. It's pretty impressive, and when that cycle keeps going, it's really cool to see, especially when you factor in the second part of his kit, which is Agony Bonds, a passive skill where each critical hit heals the champion by 15% of the damage inflicted. And again, we're building this guy with 100% crit damage, obviously, right? Because his A1 has to trigger on a critical hit. So this is one of those champions that you have to build 100% crit. Although he makes it a little bit easier to do that in a second. I'll get to that. Okay, so he's constantly increasing his turn meter, and he's constantly healing every time he hits, every time he attacks. And then when he gets hit, he's counterattacking, and that in turn fills his turn meter, and he can go again. As you can see the potential for damage output building as the fights go on. It's pretty impressive. The Projectile Burst, the damage is still a little bit unimpressive on boss fights, but a way to mitigate that is to, on your tier 6 mastery, move it off of, I think I had it on crit damage before. In arena, you'd probably want to set it for Helm Smasher or crit damage, whatever, depending on how you're building him. But I put it on War Master, right? So the additional 30% to do max enemy hit point damage when you hit, and that is much better when you're in the boss fight. So maybe you're losing a little bit of damage in the waves, but probably only on when you have really, really good gear. And I don't have really good gear, I have medium gear, which we will look at more closely in a second. Okay, and then its aura, crit rate, all allies by 19%. So you could conceivably, if you can't quite get him to 100% crit, you could conceivably put him as lead if you want to, and he'll take care of himself. You can go to 81% crit, and then this will take care of the rest. I don't know if I would suggest doing that. Usually you're going to want some other thing, either hit points or defense or something as your aura or speed, but you can conceivably, if you wanted to take full advantage of this champion, put him as lead. I'm just going to throw that out there. That is a possibility. It's there, so might as well take advantage of it if you have to. Again, I keep trying to say that I wouldn't suggest it, because as far as DPS goes, he wouldn't be my first choice. But he is really good at what he does, so we should at least talk about it, and so everyone understands that this is a capability. This is something that you could do if this is your first epic champion or what have you, and you want to see what you can do with this damage. That's all. Okay, so let's look at his masteries. With his mastery setup, you can make him work better, right? So you know that he's healing and he's attacking a lot, so you can kind of make that up. So if he's healing a lot, he might be at full hit points a lot, and so you can choose Heart of Glory, right? Which will inflict more damage when attacking with full hit points. Life Drinker, you can double down on that healing ability. When he kills, when he's attacking with 50% hit point or less, he heals. Pair that with Rejuvenation. Increase the amount of healing and value of shield buffs the champion receives by 5%. So this increased healing impacts everything, right? It impacts Life Drinker. It impacts his A1. It impacts his Agony Bonds passive, that heals by whatever percentage. It impacts that. It impacts Life Drinker. It impacts Bloodthirst, right? Heals champion by 10% of their max hit points when they kill an enemy target. So you can see that he's constantly healing, right? So what I did was a lot of times, and I've emphasized this a lot last year, is I always used like hit point percentage chests for longevity's sake, and this kind of allows you to definitely go all in on attacking or crit damage or what have you. You can definitely gear more on the attack side rather than the damage mitigation side. You don't have to stack defense or hit points or whatever as much as you would, because he's providing himself a lot of self-sustain. Now, he can't do it by himself, obviously. Oh, and it's probably in the way, right? Hang on. I think you probably have an idea of what those things are over there, but, just don't want to make any assumptions. Okay, so again, I took Giant Slayer, as my tier 6 for boss fights, so I can do more damage once we get to the boss. Because once he gets to the boss, if he's in crit damage or Helm Smasher or whatever, it's his damage just drops off, right? And his utility decreases a lot less. So I think if you're going to bring him in dungeons, your Giant Slayer might be the better way to go. Or even the other one. It's only a 2-hit, so you could conceivably go the other side of the tree with War Master if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and then of course, Cycler Revenge to increase more turn meter. You really double down on the things that he does well. Increase the turn meter, increase the heals, and increase the counterattack. So we have another counterattack check potentially. When he loses max 25 hit points. You could also go with counterattack when they apply a stun sleep fear to an ally. That way they don't necessarily have to be targeting him. That's another way to go. It doesn't really matter. I just preferred it this way. It was because I wanted delay death over any of these two. He's not going to be freezing, so Harvest Despair isn't going to work, and resist in dungeons not as important. So I went with these instead. That was my rationale. So anyway, decent setup. Also, decreasing the cooldown of a random skill is always going to be his A2 because he only has 2 skills. So Cycle of Violence is really good for this champion, and going down the Giant Slayer tree lets you get Blood Shield easier, and he kills the ads. The waves he kills them a lot, and he's putting Blood Shield on pretty often. So and then again, that also benefits from Rejuvenation. So you can really cascade all these skills to really benefit this champion particularly. He's just kind of built for it. So it's kind of cool in that regard, because a lot of times you can kind of close your eyes and put in your masteries and you'll probably be okay, right? But this particular setup works very well for Pitiless One, I think. Of course, I'm probably putting way too much thought and effort into a champion that no one uses, but that's okay. It's here. What's Madcappers? I build them so you don't have to. I think actually he did a Pitiless One too, now that I think about it. But he's a satisfying champion. His A1 animation just makes me feel good. I don't know. It's great. I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, oh, look at you go, Pitiless One with your crossbow. Thump, 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 thump. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I like it. Okay, so let's look at his artifacts. Like I said, we have him in Retaliation set. The one thing that you can go either way on is here I have him in crit damage. I also tried it in attack, and just at this particular level that I have him, again, it seems like really low crit damage, and actually the crit damage did more damage than the extra attack. All right, it's not always that way, and there's a formula that you can do. Murder Inc. did a review on it, and I couldn't believe how much more damage I did with crit damage. I guess you really kind of have to get your attack over 5,000 for it to kind of surpass the top end crit damage necklaces that you can get. So I was kind of surprised by that, but that's kind of what I found. Looks like crit damage does better if your attack's under like 5,000. I don't know, interesting. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Maybe if I feel so inclined, I'll do more math on that later. But that seems to be the impression I'm getting playing around with the numbers while I was testing this champion. And as you can see, I went a little light on the hit points for his ring and his helmet. This is more the case of just I was running out of silver, right? And I just didn't want to do it. So I figured he can heal himself enough. He'll be all right. He's got his total stats, 42,000 hit points. So that's plenty enough with the team compositions that I run. 3,700 attack, 1,500 defense, 158 speed. Again, he's counterattacking a lot, so speed isn't quite as important. And plus, you want everyone to buff because his AI does his AoE first. So you definitely want to make sure that he's going after his buffers. Crit rate 100% even. Look at that. And crit damage, like I said, 155%, and we don't need accuracy. He's not doing any kind of debuffs, so accuracy just totally doesn't matter at all with this champion, which is a relief, right? I hate juggling all these stats sometimes. All right, so let's take him for a test drive, shall we? I don't remember how I set this up. I probably did ice golems first, because I always do ice golems first, because it's my favorite. No, it's not. It's arena. All right, let's go to the arena, and I will. Look at the infernal. Umbral Enchantress, right? She is the biggest threat right now, right? But we block debuffs on her because her AI, she's going to do her unkillable provoke for 2 turns, which is a pain in the butt. But if you block her ability to put on her unkillable, then it's like you just thank you for helping me kill you, Umbrella Enchantress. I appreciate it. So there she goes. That was kind of the biggest threat in this fight, and we dealt with her without any problem whatsoever just by blocking her debuffs on there. So you see, Pitiless One did 41,000 damage. Again, that's 3rd out of everyone, but like I said, he's not built for arena. This is just, I want to say, this is his viability. If you want to go back, rewind, and look at the damage he did to each champion, it was fine, right? It was fine. Not a big deal. I wouldn't consider him a top tier arena champion, but he's there. He has some self-sustain, what have you. All right, so here we go. There we go. We got all the buffs up, and he does his thing, and we're going to go through Ice Golems 20 to the best of our ability. And you can see, as the fight goes on, he attacks more and more and more as his turn meter goes up, and he just mows down the opposition. It's pretty cool. The way that he increases his turn meter and heals is pretty impressive. Now, the penitents here are tough. The way they block debuffs and then counterattack, they're kind of a pain. They're a little bit beefy, and so this run is a little bit longer because we didn't land stuns on them in the very beginning. From Battle Sage is in a stun set, and so I use her as crowd control, but it just didn't work that time, so we kind of got bogged down here. Okay, Pitiless One is also very good in this round, this wave 2 of Ice Golems 20, because those the puppies there, they put up the reflect damage on everyone, and especially if you're really progressing nicely through your level 20 dungeons, you're doing a lot of damage, and so that's why you'll see a lot of people bring a reviver on this stage specifically for this wave, because their big nukers will kill themselves half the time on these runs just because of this one level with the reflect damage. So if they don't have any debuff strip, then they just have to deal with it, and a way to deal with it is with the reviver. But if you see Pitiless One, he mitigates half of it by himself just with his passive ability to heal himself. So maybe they'll deal 10 damage to him, but he's healing for like 5 to 7 depending. So he can definitely get himself out of a jam that is that stage, which can be a pain when you have a lot of big damage dealers coming in. So they're not debuffed yet. So he did like 21,000, 22,000 natively without any debuffs, which isn't bad on these. He did have a attack up, I guess. But a Gigomorph wasn't able to put on the defense downs and weakens yet, because after he does that, look at that, the damage goes up significantly once we have everything going. We have his attack up, we have the defense down, we have the weakens, and he's really shining at that point, and he's healing himself good amounts, a lot of self-sustain. When you have just everything kind of lining up nicely, Pitiless One can really bring a nice level of DPS to the team. Look, there's a nice 50-something thousand from an A1, which isn't bad, you know. And I don't have insane gear. You saw the gear I had. I only had like 2 6-star pieces on them. So pretty good DPS. Again, no utility, but if you're just looking for someone just to deal pure sustained damage and deals damage often, like if this game had a different mechanic where being attacked would like interrupt a spell, you know, like some other games do, then he would be a top tier champ. It doesn't look like that, so he's not, but his rate of attack and the damage he gives out is actually pretty decent. All right, so can we skip to the end here? Yeah, so here's the end. He did 1.8 million, right? But more than Dracomorph, and Dracomorph is a god on boss fights with all his poisons, and Pitiless One, with his AOE's, was able to surpass that. Granted, Dracomorph's not quite as good since his nerf, where his second hit on his A1 can't crit, but regardless, still, this is a pretty good output, and we needed no reses this entire fight. We got through this. This is just a perfect setup of damage mitigation, buffs, and defense with Miscreated Monster, shields, everything. Really, this is a really nice setup for Ice Golems. Granted, it took 4 minutes, but that's because the penitence usually takes around 3, and I've done it under 2 when I really go all out and like all attack when I have like Zabi on here with Dracomorph. And regardless, for a mid-range Ice Golem 20 team, he showed well in the DPS slot. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. Where do we want to go next? This is the end of Dragons 20, where he did 1 million. This was different. This is him in attack. He was running attack instead of crit damage, so he's doing a little bit less damage on this run. But I just wanted to see if we can get through it. And of course, Dracomorph is awesome in Dragons. Probably solo it by himself, really. Sometimes I feel that way. Okay, this is Spider 20. Okay, it's Spider 20. So watch what he does. There we go. So, and then he immediately attacks because he fills up his entire turn meter just with the 1 AoE that he does initially, right? So again, no utility, so it's dangerous to bring him on a spider run. But with Ignatius and Cold Heart and Martyr and Miscreated Monster, you can kind of bring anyone you want to bring in the DPS slot. So why not bring Pitiless One, who's going to do a decent amount of damage often? I mean, there's better champions to take, obviously, but last time I did Pitiless One, I didn't take him in Spider, and people said, "Why aren't you taking him in Spider?" And, well, because you don't really need. He's not really suited for Spiders 20. It's good for like up to Spiders 14 when you're focusing more on you're focusing less on the turn meter of the Spider boss, the Spider Queen, and you're focusing more on the Spiderlings. Because at stage 15, you don't care about the Spiderlings anymore. You're just trying to get the turn meter down. It's just more efficient to do it that way. So I actually did that. Let's see here. So here's the end of Spiders 20 when we finally finish him. 3 minutes 40. And he did 1.7 million. Of course, Ignatius is the key here. He's doing 6 million, but 1.7, not bad. Cold Heart did 2.4. He did his part as a damage dealer and some self-sustain. Okay, and this is Spiders 14. All right, and so there we go. He takes about half the Spiderlings with his AoE right away, and then attacks the boss immediately right away too. So he definitely has utility, I'd say, up to including Spiders 14. After that, when you're concentrating on the turn meter, you don't want this champion in Spiders, really. If he's all you got, then sure, but I wouldn't be who I would recommend to bring past Spiders 14. Okay, let's go up to the next one. What do we have here? Here's the end. Okay, so he did 2.1 million. As you see, he's very, very effective up to that point. He out-damaged Cold Heart, right? So good on him. Okay, and then what do I have here at 9? Okay, so here's his max damage. So this is him fully buffed. That's about 200,000 damage on the first wave here in Ice Golems, and then he immediately can attack again and does about 50,000 after you add in the if you proc War Master twice, that's another 7,500 each. So it's a really nice hit on an A1. It's around 60,000. So Not bad for mid-range gear. I would take that, right? He's a solid DPS. Again, the problem that I have to hammer home is that he doesn't have any other utility other than that. But if you have everything else taken care of, right? You have all your defense downs, your weakens, your attack ups, whatever it is that you want, your attack down. I haven't run any attack downs in these dungeons, but because I had enough damage mitigation. But if you have all your debuffs that you want covered, he's a great DPS. You don't really have to worry about him. You can slot him in. He takes care of himself. You don't have to really worry too much about healing if you have him built right. So, it's, could do worse. You could do worse than Pitiless One. And see, the 9. Oh, that's it. Okay, that's it. That's the last I have a Pitiless One. All right, so, again, my hypothesis is the same. He's a solid champion that only helps himself. Right? He doesn't bring anything else to your team, but he can take care of himself and self-sustain. So he can take the pressures off your healers. The healer can focus on other champions. Your ally attack, you can have someone else. You have Verges leading, and you put someone else in that right-hand slot. So he can help you in those ways. But again, he's just a pure damage dealer. And he doesn't even do that great, but he does heal himself, so that makes up for it. Right? So mediocre damage, great sustain. Not a whole lot of utility. That's the same conclusion I came to last time, but now he's just better at dealing damage and better at healing himself because of that. So that's Pitiless One, man. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and if you have anything in the comments, if I left anything out, please let me know what I forgot, and I'll answer the question down in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like. If you like the content, subscribe. This is like how I like to do things. I try to be as efficient or as comprehensive as possible, which is why it takes me a long time to do these. Oh, and also I saw that Ash had a soulbound Boyer in Retaliation gear, which looked interesting too because she has that AoE A1 with, I think, ignore defense, I think, or maybe additional crit damage. I don't remember what, but it does something cool. On her A1, so that's probably a fun video to watch. That reminded me when I talked about this red gear that was out there, so something to check out. Let me know how you like that. So subscribe if you like this, throw me a like if you like the video, and I will see you next time. Whew. All right, and scene. Take care, guys.